Life has changed for millions of Americans in the decades since the 9/11 attacks. Thousands of Wisconsin soldiers have been deployed in the so-called global war on terror. Their absence has had a big impact on family members. As WUWM's Ann-Elise reports, there's been a growing concern about the well-being of soldiers' children and a rise in programs to help them.
Since the terrorist attacks 10 years ago, more than 10,000 members of the Wisconsin National Guard have been deployed, many more than once. Each time, parent soldiers have had to say goodbye to their children. One left behind is 10-year-old Fernando Quinones of Oak Creek. He says until recently, he longed to be around kids from a similar background.
Because I feel kind of like an outsider sometimes that my dad's in the military.
But Quinones says when he spends time with military kids, there's an instant bond.
We all share each other's sad stories. It's very nice.
Quinones had his chance last month to hang out with children of soldiers. The young people attended an Easter Seals camp on Oconomowoc designed to address their needs. I met him on a military show and tell day. The kids were waiting in line to climb into a Humvee where they could check out its control panel and its high-tech GPS unit.
I think it's really cool. That costs like $30,000. Usually GPS that costs like $30.
Others were learning how to heat military ready-to-eat meals and sampling them.
They're more attracted to like the grape jelly jams that we have and the cakes and the more sweeter things.
Dan Anderson is Easter Seals respite manager. He says while the camp provided plenty of activities, including scavenger hunts and canoeing, its focus was addressing life in a military family.
Mental Health America came out and they did a puzzle activity. Within this activity, they help the kids identify some of the issues that they're dealing with, whether it be fear for the life of their parent, nightmares, dealing with bullying at school, and just gave them some coping mechanisms and strategies to help deal with that.
10-year-old Elise Texador appreciated the session on journaling.
They read us a book called The Invisible String. It was about a mom and two kids who couldn't sleep, and all the other kids in the world that had an invisible string attached to their hearts, and when they were missing somebody, they just tugged on it, and then the other person could feel it tug on their heart back. When my dad's gone, I know that he's helping other kids and other people to have a better life, so we could put the invisible string between the two countries and all around the world.
In recent years, programs such as the Easter Seals Camp have sprouted up to help military children cope with loneliness, uncertainty, and fear. Those feelings, as well as extra responsibilities, can take a toll.
It isn't unusual at all for kids to have a drop in grades, for example. Sometimes they'll drop out of their normal activities, their school activities, because they're needed at home for extra help.
Sue Curtis is involved with Operation Military Kids. Several groups have assembled to run its program, including the University of Wisconsin Extension and 4-H.
Kids aren't always forthcoming with the information. They don't always tell their teachers, or they don't always tell even sometimes their peers that they have a parent deployed.
Curtis says Operation Military Kids formed after 9/11 and has a presence in all 50 states. Grants fund it. She says the program addresses the unique challenges children with parents in the National Guard and reserve units face.
A lot of times active military folks are housed on a military base or close to a military base, but when you're in Guard and Reserve, you might be the only family on your street that has somebody in the military.
So Operation Military Kids runs get-togethers all year and even provides books for libraries about military families. And the activities are not just designed to help children while parents are away, but also when they return. That's a challenge people often overlook, according to Karen Texador. Her daughter Elise attended the recent Easter Seals camp. Texador says her husband has been deployed and come home twice during the 10-year-old's life.
You think it's just this great big reunion, but then you have to get reacclimated with how everything works, and they haven't seen their parent and they're not used to them like disciplining them, and sometimes stuff like that can be a challenge. Or if the parent comes back and they have issues from their deployment, that makes it even harder on the kids too.
And even after a parent safely returns, program operators say children live with the fear that mom or dad could one day again depart for a war zone. I'm Ann-Elise, 89.7 WUWM.
The State Assembly approved the concealed carry bill Tuesday. If Governor Scott Walker signs the item, adults with permits will be able to carry hidden guns. Supporters say citizens will be safer when they're able to defend themselves. Opponents argue cities won't be safer if more guns are on the street. They fought the legislation for years. The new law could create additional business for gun stores. WUWM's Ann-Elise visited a local shop to learn what a novice gun buyer would experience.
At the Shooter's shop in West Allis, handguns are packed into glass display cases. Rifles line the walls. You can hear sounds from the firing range in the basement. Lately, there's been another common sound here, the phone.
We've been inundated with calls.
Salesman Ben Giese says people have been calling a lot as concealed carry has moved through the capital.
This is typically one of our slower months, and business has picked up.
Not knowing much about guns, I asked Giese what he would show a customer purchasing one for the first time.
Most people choose to carry smaller firearms, subcompacts and revolvers. So we'd start off some there, see what fits your hand size, because really fit is the most important thing.
It's not cheap. Giese tells me the handgun alone would cost about $500.
Now you're going to tack on a good holster. A good leather holster run you easily $100. Then you need to get some decent ammunition. Then you need, obviously, the training, spare magazines, cleaning kits, range equipment. You can end up spending easily $1,000 just to get yourself kitted out for carry.
Giese then offers to show me the store's shooting range, where gun owners can practice.
What are you going to be comfortable with? You ever shot anything before in your life?
No.
We'll take two guns down there. We're going to start you off with a 22, which is a little bit more than a pop gun. And then we'll probably bring you something like a 9mm.
Giese and I walk into the basement where he demonstrates some basics. He instructs me to slightly bend my knees and hold the gun steadily with both hands.
Go ahead and get a good grip on that. You don't necessarily have to bend your arms. You do whatever's comfortable, okay. But whatever you have to do to hold that gun out there. All right? Remember, keep both eyes open and focus.
I have to sign a document indicating I don't intend to harm myself. Then Giese hands me noise-canceling headphones and safety glasses and leads me to one of the range's 7 bays where people can pull the trigger. Giese corrects the way I cross my thumbs. I end up hitting the target's silhouette a few times. The experience underscores how hard it is to remember everything Giese told me about the correct way to use a handgun.
Anybody who purchases a firearm needs to be proficient in its use, safe handling. If you buy a gun for self-defense, you carry it for 2 years and you haven't shot it since you bought the gun, you're not going to be nearly as effective as if you come in and you practice every 6 months, every 3 months, or whatever works for you. Practice, training, they do make a difference.
Shooters plans to offer training for new gun owners motivated to buy because of concealed carry. Giese says knowing when to use a gun is critical, a responsibility gun owners must take seriously.
If you introduce a gun into a situation, you cannot take a gun out. If you have a gun on you and there's a bar brawl, let's say, you have choices. You need to evaluate what you're going to do. Are you going to get involved? At first blush, I would say no. If it's not your fight, stay out of it. You don't want to introduce a gun into that scenario and now escalate things beyond where they need to be.
Giese says he impresses on customers to always treat a gun as if it's loaded and not to point it at anything they're not willing to destroy. I'm Ann-Elise, 89.7 WUWM.
More than a third of Wisconsin state senators could be fighting for their political future because of voter outrage over the governor's budget repair bill. A number of recall attempts have been launched against the Democrats who've left the state to delay a vote, as well as Republicans who support Governor Walker's divisive proposal. The state has never faced so many recalls at one time. There have been a few high-profile cases, however, in which voters have worked to unseat elected officials. Ann-Elise has the first story in our series on recall fever.
The state constitution gives voters the right to try to force lawmakers into a recall election. That's what Racine County residents did in 1996 when they ousted Republican State Senator George Petak. Public sentiment turned against Petak after he voted for Racine County to be included in a special tax to build Miller Park. His vote became the driving force for a recall effort and the subject of news coverage on the topic.
As he explains it, lawmakers always have to cast votes unpopular with some constituents and shouldn't have to survey the district every time a controversial item surfaces.
Petak recently shared his recollection of that time.
Well, it was difficult. I wouldn't encourage anyone to go through a recall election if they could possibly avoid it.
Petak is convinced there was more to his recall than just the future of the Brewers Stadium. At the time, the Senate had what Petak calls a fragile Republican majority of just one vote. So he says Democrats were looking for a way to take control by flipping his district. It's one that's gone back and forth between the two major parties.
My political opponents were looking for that one issue that they could use as the springboard or the fodder to become the rallying point against my continued service in the public setting.
Petak was the first legislator in the state's history to have been voted out in a recall election. The only one since then was Milwaukee Senator Gary George. Recall fever hit Milwaukee County in a major way in 2002. That's when it became widely known that the county government had approved very generous pension payments for county workers. Orville Seymour was one of the outraged voters who moved to recall County Executive Tom Ament, whom many blamed for the so-called pension scandal. Within 60 days, Seymour says the group collected more than twice the number of signatures required to force a recall election.
It just kind of all came together very quickly. 13 people got together in a guy's living room in Glendale, Wisconsin on a Sunday afternoon, and within 3 days we had a rally scheduled. We had volunteers in virtually every community in Milwaukee County.
Because of the pressure, Tom Ament stepped down rather than face a recall. When he announced his decision, the longtime county official said it was clear he couldn't effectively do his job and fight the recall effort.
I will truly miss this place. For the past 34 years, I have worked in these chambers.
A special election was held to find a new county executive. Then state lawmaker Scott Walker won the election and held on to the post until he was elected governor. Orville Seymour and the others involved in the Ament recall went on to form the group Citizens for Responsible Government. It helped defeat 7 county board members who voted for the pension package.
People around the state started actually contacting us. And we got this problem here. Our mayor, our alderman, our school board member, you name it. They won't listen to us. What did you guys do? Can you help us? And then actually groups around the country started contacting us because of our notoriety, I guess you'd say.
Citizens for Responsible Government has been involved in a number of other recall attempts over the years, including several underway now involving state senators. There's another particularly noteworthy recall in the state's history, according to Kevin Kennedy, director of the Government Accountability Board. It involved a Dane County judge in 1977.
People often remember Archie Simonson. He was successfully recalled for remarks he made in sentencing in a juvenile matter. There was a high school student who was the victim of a sexual assault, and he made references to the fact that maybe she was asking for it by the way she dressed. And there happened to be a reporter covering this matter, and she reported this story, and it went viral, and back in the days when you didn't go viral.
Kennedy says Simonson was the only judge in the state to lose a recall election. Kennedy says the state could face another first this year if enough valid signatures are collected to force numerous state senators into recall elections. The sheer number would put a strain on election officials and could result in a huge wave of campaign spending. We'll explore that topic tomorrow as our series on recalls continues. I'm Ann-Elise Hensel, 89.7 WUWM.